Hi, welcome to Ask the Chiropractor. I'm Dr. Corey B. Rodnick, and today we have a panel of Dr. Rodnicks. Dr. Paul Rodnick.
Thanks so much for having me today, Doc.
Yep.
Exciting show.
Yay, and from Saginaw.
Yep.
And Dr. Neil Rodnick.
Good morning. Good to be
Good
here.
morning. Who's from Midland,
Michigan.
And Toni Rodnick, Dr. Toni Rodnick.
It's exciting to be here. This is going to be a great show.
Yay, I'm excited. So today, after we just came back from the Arnold Classic, and I did have about 5 hours of physics in there, so I couldn't help it with the Higgs bosons and a lot of physics. Anyway, with the particle accelerators and all that, it's very exciting. So that got me thinking about the nervous system and how the body works and how amazing, truly amazing our bodies are and what it does, and just very excited about that. And I mean, we have muscles, ligaments, tendons, and all these fibers all working together, and it's having to grow and to feed, and it all works together to make us. And we take it for granted most of the time. And tell us a little bit about how the nervous system works.
Well, first of all, I just want to jump in. You were just saying most people take their body for granted, and that's absolutely true. And a big part of that is because a lot of people don't know what's going on in their body. Your body has this incredible intelligence in it that runs, regulates, controls your body, takes care of yourself. Your body's constantly doing chemical reactions, pumping, letting out different hormones. Your body always knows exactly what to do. It can take a paper cut on your finger and turn it back into new skin. Your body's always taking care of itself, and a lot of people underestimate that. So like you said, a lot of people take their bodies for granted. They don't really realize how much is going on in there. Now, how does the body control itself? Through the nervous system. The brain sits right on top, goes down through the spinal cord, and then the nerves come out through each of the individual segments there, going everywhere in the entire body. Runs, controls, regulates, you name it. Everything that goes on in your body has some kind of nervous system attachment.
That's absolutely correct. What other systems are there in the body? There's different types of systems.
So there's 13 different systems in the body. There's
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, a whole bunch of systems, all also ran by the nervous system, which they all kind of link back and forth between each other, but the nervous system is controlling it all. There's digestive, muscular, skeletal. There's
Lots of
a whole bunch of systems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Circulatory.
more than I can count on my hands.
What else, Toni?
There's the circulatory, there's the skeletal, there's the immune.
So what if one of these systems isn't functioning correctly? What happens?
Well, the way your body works is your body's synergistic. Everything works in synergy with each other. So it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 5. Everything in your body is working properly. So when one thing goes wrong, you don't just, oh, my digestive system's not working right, so now I'm just minus the digestive system. If one system shuts down, everything that it affects shuts down, and everything's interrelated to each other. So when one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong.
I want to give an example of really cool, we're made of mostly water. About 70% of our body is water. The nervous system's about 92% water, like a big wet noodle. It's like a worm in there too. It actually
Very
contracts.
fragile and delicate, yeah.
Very fragile, very delicate. And it's like, so here we are, we're like a water balloon, and yet we're porous. We actually breathe through our skin and secrete fluids through our skin. Like when we sweat, let's say, if it gets hot out, we sweat to cool our body down. That we don't just leak out. Like that's when they discovered vitamin C. But that's the cell cement, and it holds it together. Otherwise, it just leaks out. Blood was leaking out with the ship guards. That's how they.
That was the scurvy.
Scurvy.
Yep.
They go out for 6 months on a ship. They come back, and everyone was dead. So the first thing you do, right, if something like that happens, is what? Get the women off the ship, right? That'd be the first thing I would do. That's why it's bad luck to have a woman on board, kind of thing. On the other hand, that didn't work either. And they found that this simple thing like limes would change that. But I'm just saying, what goes into just not letting us leak out fluids as compared to keeping this whole system intact. Again, like you said, the nervous system is what's controlling that whole thing. And it's so specific and so integral and yet so vast and so massive at the same time. And that's what I'd like to talk about today and how all that works. It's pretty incredible. We're going to, I know we have a video on the fetus and how that goes. Think about this. We start off with one cell and another cell. And those two cells get together to make one cell.
Yeah, they're not even one cell and one cell. It's half a cell.
Half a cell. You can call it a half, but really it's, genetically it's a half a cell. But it's still a cell. And here it is, they get together and make one cell. And that cell divides equal parts, and divides again, equal parts, and divides again, and divides again, and divides again, and divides again.
Until it starts forming something that's an actual organism.
And then the nervous system appears. And it changes everything. It says, you're going to be where the heart is, and we're going to make a heart out of you. All of a sudden, the thing becomes a heart cell. The cells differentiate, and they all become completely different. Liver, spleen, kidneys, all the different cells, muscle, ligaments, tendons, bone, all become, they start forming different things by this amazing nervous system, which eventually becomes the brain and the whole system, the nervous system. And just to fathom how this all is occurring, and again, we just take it for granted. Here you are every day. You take it for granted that you can breathe until you can't breathe. You take, you don't even think about it as you're perspiring because it's got hot out, or starts getting cold out. If it gets cold, the vessels themselves all change so that it can regulate the body.
And you
better.
shiver to keep the heat in too.
Yeah. I mean, that's what. And then you have the liver creating chemicals to make things happen. When you're thirsty, just the idea of thirst, let's look at that, break that down for a moment. You're thirsty. You think, oh man, I need to go get a drink. But it doesn't really work that way. The cells themselves are lacking in enough fluids. They send signals up to the brain. The brain sends out a hormone that gets released to make your mouth dry. And then you start to drink. And we take that for granted. And then some systems aren't regulated properly. And here you are drinking, and you're still thirsty. There's a lag period because the cells themselves haven't sent the signal back to the brain. Or there's a blocking off of that signal, or different things can happen that delay it. And these are all going on without us even being aware that this is happening. And it's just something we get to deal with every day working with people. It's what we're working with is re-regulating how the body normally would function. And we're looking for, let's talk about subluxations. Who wants to go over that?
I can handle that one. If I can see this spine. So what a subluxation is, it's a word we use in chiropractic. The shorter version of what is actually happening is when something will move out of place, that it can actually pinch some of the nerves coming out of your spinal cord, sending signals from the brain, and when it pinches off, it can actually cause a decrease in the signal of what your body's supposed to be doing with that signal, as well as causing too much of a signal. And it can dysregulate whatever the nerve that was pinched off is trying to do.
And that goes in both directions too. We call it the safety pin cycle, where you have the brain and you have the body, and it actually goes in a circle. So if you have a pinched off nerve, it can interrupt the signals going from the brain to your body, or from the body back up to the brain. So just the dehydration thirst example you were just given, the cells start to dry up, they don't have enough fluid. So those cells send a signal to the brain. If there's a pinch off in one of those nerves, the brain might not get that signal, or might not get the same signal. Same thing going the other way. Let's say it's not pinched off there, so we have the cells dry up, they tell the brain, hey, we need to get some water in here. The the brain sends out the signals to release the hormone to say you're thirsty, but if that's being pinched off, you can have, you don't get the right signal. You don't feel that same thirst. And just to throw in too, by the time you get thirsty, by the time you feel that thirst, you're already in the beginning stages of dehydration. I just want to throw that in there.
So when the bones go out of place, the holes that the nerves come out of between the bones, they're not just empty holes. They're filled with tissues. They're filled with blood vessels. They're filled with tendons. They're filled with. So it's not necessarily the hard bone on the soft nerve. It could be some of the soft tissue in there too, because you're decreasing the size of the hole. Or when you do it, you might be causing inflammation when the bones move and tearing some tissues and stuff. And that inflammation, the fluids can also be putting pressure on the nerves.
You know, for years, well, it started off with Hippocrates saying, look well to the spine for the cause of disease. And that was, Hippocrates was the father of modern medicine. And here he is putting mud on patients to see where one area would dry out faster, which would be a hot nerve, or it stayed liquidy there and everything else dries out fairly decently. And you would see a nerve that isn't firing properly. And then later on, they wanted to say, well, can you get a pinched nerve like that? And the idea to have an actual pinched nerve was really ridiculous, because when you checked the leg, to pinch a nerve in your leg, just the leg itself, it took 220 pounds of mercury pressure, like, you know, taking blood pressure, how it puts pressure on your arm. 220 pounds is what it takes to pinch a nerve in your leg. However, what is it, 10 millimeters. 10 millimeters.
The weight of a dime.
The weight of a dime.
At the nerve root.
What confuses me is the nickel and the 5. Okay, so it's 10 millimeters of mercury. The weight of a dime on the back of your hand is all it takes, where Dr. Toni Rodnick was discussing, in those holes. So at this level, it's very slight movement, causes very slight pressure, causes massive changes in the electrical conductivity of that nerve and its communication with the body. Just
I think it's something like 60% of nerve flow is reduced by that amount of 10 millimeters.
Correct. 60% change, 60% alteration of the signals. So if it's your kidneys, a lack of 60% function in a kidney, let's say, would be massive. It'd be a massive change. Now, it could be more millimeters of pressure on there, would cause even more. But it's like immediately 60% on 10 millimeters of pressure.
It's interesting you were talking about Hippocrates using mud. We have more modern technological things that also look at that today. We have thermography. We have different types of thermography. We have the liquid crystals, and we have different kinds of sensors. And you can actually see the difference in the autonomic nervous system function, like you said, by hot and cold spots. And then you can adjust the person and re-look at it, and there's changes almost immediately in the temperature, the surface temperature, caused by the autonomic nervous system.
I was one of the first chiropractors. I was actually the second chiropractor in the state of Michigan working with liquid crystals. It was 28 years ago. And I found it amazing. It was unbelievable. Very expensive. But it was, and now people might be able to relate to that more. When they took pictures about, what was it, about 10, 15 years ago, they were taking pictures of houses using thermography to show window leaking and things like that of heat. And I thought it was phenomenal. And but we have new things now that we use instead of different things like that. The MRIs, for example, cinematography we have, and all these different types of, I don't know if they're less expensive or more expensive, but anyway, very interesting though.
They all show different things, like the MRI is good at soft tissue, and the CAT scan is good at hard tissue, like bones. And they all show different things, so it's amazing what we have these days.
And the technology, the advancements in technology are absolutely amazing, and they really help us to have a better understanding of what's going on in the body. But to me, what's more amazing than the technological advances that we're coming up with is the thing that's been there since the beginning, the body itself. When I look at the body, just having even before I went to chiropractic school, just having a basic understanding of this is how the body works. This does this does that. Just looking at the body is so much more impressive to me than looking at a thermography. The technology behind the thermography is fantastic, and I don't understand. I'm not that technological as far as the electronics go, and to me, it's impressive. But what's more impressive, and what we're still trying to learn thousands of years later, we're still trying to know, how does this work? Why does this work like this? And there's just so much there. There's so much organization. The human body to me is just absolutely impressive.
When we technologically catch up to the nervous system, everything's going to change because it's so advanced. Our bodies are so advanced that we can't even keep up with it. I mean, everyone's heard, well, your brain is a master computer to have it be as big as the Empire State Building and blah, blah, blah. The whole internet system, the whole network system doesn't even come close to one human brain. The capacity, the capability, it's just mind-boggling on how all this is working. It's just, and like in the office, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I don't know. I haven't asked you guys this, but have you ever had someone with high blood pressure and you adjust them and it goes away, poof?
Absolutely.
All the time.
Yeah. What is that?
Like massively
what
high, and it'll drop within a couple minutes.
I'll throw
back
another
to a
one.
normal
Somebody
range.
comes in with an atlas adjustment. Somebody will come in with their fever. They have a massive fever. You ever adjusted somebody, and it immediately is gone? I mean gone. Am I the only one?
No, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just checking. I don't know. I never really asked you guys this, but
Not as often as the blood pressure thing, though.
yeah,
On that
that's
one.
because we have to take blood pressure now for
That's
the EHR. So we already know that their blood pressure's high. We go clunk and it's gone.
Now, here's the one, too, that's really incredible for me. We get a lot of the high blood pressure because that's the one that people are looking out for more. But the one that I think is really interesting, too, is person
Low
comes
blood
in.
pressure.
Yep, exactly. They have low blood pressure. Same thing, I move the same bone, same direction. It's just the way that it's pinched off in one person is pinching it off in such a way that it's restricting the signals, causing low blood pressure. The way it's pinched off in somebody else, it's causing faster, facilitated signals, and it causes that high blood pressure. But that same nerve controlling that same thing, to me, I'm moving this bone, this direction, this alignment. But the effects that it has on the body, your body always knows exactly what it needs.
Yeah,
it just needs to be free of the interference.
The intelligence of the body is amazing when it figures out what it needs. It can increase or decrease whatever's needed.
And you say right there, when the body figures out what it needs, the body doesn't figure out anything. The body always knows. The body knows what's going on, and what it needs is lack of interference. It can't be interfered with. When the nervous system is interfered with, that's where you start to get disease processes forming in the body. But your body knows, this is it. It's keeping better track of itself than
Then we can.
Then we can, yeah, exactly.
I love the effects, and I love this stuff. This is just amazing to me. It's my favorite stuff to talk about. This is the kind of thing I like to talk all night about. It's so great. Wow. Then, again, we were talking about systems. So here you have cerebral spinal fluid produced in the brain, runs down the cord, comes back, and it gets pumped back up. And you've seen people like hydroencephaly. You've seen people with weird tubes coming out of theirs for different reasons. And so I've seen where, that's happened where they're getting hydroencephaly, an adjustment, same thing, atlas adjustment, that helped with the blood pressure, low and high, help with the fever. That same adjustment would get rid of like you were saying, high and low blood pressure. I'm saying totally different things wrong with them. When that nervous system, up here, the nervous system is controlling and regulating like everything. Like down here, it doesn't quite do the same thing. It's less
You know, we really didn't go to this chart over here next to you, and it kind of actually shows where each of these nerves are controlling every organ in your body. So, nerves coming. We'll start with the brain is your main nerve, your housing unit for the nerves. So coming down through the foramen magnum, you can see at each level the nerves are actually running out.
So wait, when he says foramen magnum, that just means
that,
the big
that
hole
means
in
the big
skull.
hole in the bottom of your skull.
Right here.
But that traces down through your spinal cord, and you can actually take them at each different level and see where the nerves run to the different organs to control them, as well as, this chart doesn't show, but it also controls the muscular system, as well as everything else outside of the main organs in the body.
And the brain, like you were saying, the brain's where everything happens. The brain's the most important part, and that's where the control is. And so as we get higher up in the spine, we get closer to the brain, we get closer to that bridge between the brain and the body. So when there's a pinched off nerve right there, right under the brain, it can affect almost anything in the entire body. It's everywhere going down is being pinched off, controlled through the nervous system. When you get a pinched off in the low back, it controls everything that's going down, so it'll control the organs, it'll control, going down your legs, but it doesn't affect it quite as much as, if you have one pinched off up here, it can still pinch off going down your legs. So the closer we get to the control center, the closer we get to that bridge, the more of an effect it'll have on the body.
And then it has that feedback loop like you were talking about before. So in here, you could affect different organs that are changing the hormones. And all of a sudden, that's feeding back up to the whole body up the other way. But not as, it's obviously not as important as when these go, holy cow, everything's messed up. So that's why you see a lot of chiropractors like working with the upper cervical more. And I know we're big on upper cervical. And, and some doctors just like only working on the low back and different things like that. But we're kind of like more upper cervical and
like working
and the whole
anywhere
body.
where something's
Yeah,
pinching
where
off.
everything's pinching, that's it.
Well, there's different principles that come into play there too. The chiropractor that only works on the bottom, they're working off the base theory, where everything stacks on top of each other. As you line up, if you line up the base, everything else kind of fall in line.
Like a crooked building compared to a solid base and a foundation.
A solid foundation.
And then the exact opposite, the upper cervical only chiropractor, they're working up here because this affects everything else, and if you fix this, it'll trickle down as well. More often than not, in our offices, we work with the full spine, like you said, pinch or adjust anything that's being pinched off. All their fantastic theories, all of them get great results. Just making sure that nervous system's staying unpinched, no matter how you do it, makes a huge difference for the body.
I suppose I've never really tried to fix the blood pressure or anything like that using the low back model.
Well,
I mean,
you
I'm
do.
great, if you have like a bad low back, don't get me wrong, I'm great at that. But I've never specifically, I would think more upper cervical on that. Well, that's just because that's what's controlling it more.
You do, though, but you do it indirectly because you're adjusting the upper cervical
Yes.
and the base.
Yeah.
So you do that, just, kind of picked apart.
Yeah, I don't know how much research went on that. I imagine, Logan College is most, they
have
start at the
the basis
bottom,
of the bottom
and then
stuff,
Palmer
yeah.
College starts at the top, and you get both of that. Like where we went to school, you get both of that, and you pick and choose what you want.
There's some techniques that just do the top and the bottom, craniosacral.
Correct.
Because
Sure.
the tension in the cord and the flow of the cerebrospinal fluid from the top to the bottom is greatly affected by those two regions.
Same thing with the sacro-occipital technique. They really want to make sure.
Let's break this down. You know what? I'm just thinking here. We're talking like regular, but I don't know if everyone understands what we're saying. So the sacrum is that bottom bone, and you said occiput is
Yep.
the top bone up here. So you're looking at the very bottom, and we're looking at the very top. And chiropractors love talking philosophy and anatomy and all the different ologies. We just get into it. So that's kind of what we're going after today. So go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
So the really important thing too, again, we're working with the base and we're working with the bridge from the brain to the body. But a big part of the theory for just as far as the sacro-occipital technique goes, is that, like you were saying, there's cerebrospinal fluid in the brain going down and it gets pumped back up. That pump actually happens when you walk. Your occiput will kind of pump like this, your tailbone will kind of pump like that, and it'll actually pump that fluid up and down throughout your spinal cord and keep you healthy. So that's a really important one to keep in line.
Sure. Absolutely amazing. Because without a healthy nervous system, if that pump isn't working, you're not feeding nutrients, which is another thing that has to be done here. So vessels, we have to have vessels feeding, and we have to have vessels getting rid of toxins. So you have your arteries coming in, you have your veins going out, and to get rid of the toxin, like the sewer system would be more like your
Excretory system, your urinary
lymphatic drainage kind of thing. And also we can excrete it also through the skin. You'll notice some people have a funny smell about them. And you go, eee. But they're probably getting rid of different toxins. I remember going to China, and I'm getting interpretation of conversations, and they say they can always tell an American because we stink, because we eat a lot of meat, cheese, dairy products, and so we have this weird smell. As a matter of fact, I ran out of deodorant there, and I couldn't find any because they don't sell it, because there's no need for it. They don't eat like we eat, so they don't have that nasty smell.
Well, just in my own defense, I don't think I have a nasty smell.
And I agree as well. I think I smell great. But when I went to China, and this was years ago, because now they probably stink like we do too, because they started eating differently as we progressed the country as far as
Westernized
the
fast
food industry. I don't know what's over there now, but I haven't been there, in about 10 years or so. What is it, longer maybe even? So, yeah.
Going back, talking about the vessels like you were talking about, like I was saying earlier, I'm in awe, I'm really impressed by how the human body is. But it's not just the human body, it's all living things. And a nice example that I like to give as far as talking about the vessels go and just kind of put into perspective how complicated and how impressive our body is. I look at a tree. So you look at a tree, this one's not a real tree, but you look at the top of a tree and it's got branches and it splits, and then you got another split and another split, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Now if you take the top of that tree and you shrink it down, shrink until it's less than, a fraction of a millimeter, just tiny, tiny, tiny. That's what your blood vessels look like. They come out and they branch and they split, and they start off big when they're at your heart, and they get smaller and smaller. But by the time they get to the capillaries, they're that same thing. They look like almost like the top of a tree, where it's a branch and a branch and a branch, and little, smaller. But you shrink that down to as small as you can imagine it, and that's what's going on inside your body, all over your body at all times. These vessels, they're so impressive. Your body always knows exactly where to put, this area needs more of this nutrient, send it over. This area needs more of that, and it sends it through these little tiny capillaries. And like I said, to me, it's just really impressive. And if you're viewing at home, probably not right now during the cold winter months, but once it gets a little warmer out, go outside and just kind of look at the top of a tree and just look at how complicated it actually is, and then just kind of relate that to how your body is, because your body is just so complicated on a microscopic level. Again, it's just really impressive to me.
You were saying how the body can send the blood where it's needed. The arteries actually, and the smaller arteries, the arterioles, they actually have muscle, and they can contract to make the vessel larger or smaller depending on the needs of the body. It's all under control of the nervous system, so that makes it even more amazing.
Absolutely.
We were working on Mr. Universe type people over the weekend, and to see how their muscle, you were talking about how the vessels expands and things. So when they would flex their muscle, it would go like this, and then they do it again, and it goes like this again, and then they go like this, and it just keeps like blowing up a raft, and it was like, and when we see them like at the seminar,
they look like a strong person, but they look like a regular. They don't look monstrously
like
big. Yeah,
it's like muscle on muscle on muscle, unbelievable. And then you see them up close, and it's like some of those girls who I was kind of like, yeah, that look, like that's damn ugly. You look at them, I mean, muscular. But then when you see them in a party dress that night, totally different. I mean, you could tell they're muscular, but you wouldn't expect that look. Like, wow. How about the little girl who was Miss, what was she, Miss Figure? Came in, we got a picture of her. We'll show that next month. But
Monica Brandt?
I don't know her name. She was from Brazil, lives in she didn't speak English very well. She was just, she walks up, she's got a little sweatshirt on, and, and then she posed with us. But that night when she posed, I mean, her lats were just, whew. So we can move and we can change and regulate all this. And I know chiropractic is a big thing for these people because they want symmetry. They want, that's very important to win in these competitions. But anyway,
going back to how the vessels can dilate and contract, and especially the arteries, here's a common example I see all the time in the office. People come in, they have headaches. They get these throbbing, pounding headaches. So let's say we have an artery going to the head. It's bringing blood to the brain, really important. Now, your body always knows how much blood it wants going to a certain area. So let's say your brain says, I need this much blood being pumped to my brain, and the artery is getting the wrong signal from the nervous system because that nerve is being pinched off by a bone out of place. Bone's out of place, pinching off the nerve causes that artery to, instead of being this big, being this big. Now, the body is still trying to pump this much blood to the brain, so now every time the body, or every time the heart pumps blood, that artery is trying to pump this much blood through an area that's that big, and every time the heart beats and pumps blood, that artery goes ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And that's where these horrible throbbing headaches, it's throbbing, I can't handle it, my head hurts. It's all being caused, again, going back, caused by the nervous system.
And correcting that can also, a lot of times, be instant.
Absolutely.
Once the body knows what it needs, it can be instant. Is it every time?
Not necessarily.
Most of the time.
Yeah, a lot of times. I know it depends
Thank
too,
God, right?
Because there could be swelling in the body too. It's swelling within that joint because it's out of place. Your body wants to protect itself, so it puts a little bit extra fluid in there. We correct that, then the headache a lot of times will just correct right away, but sometimes it takes a little while for everything to kind of calm down, settle back to normal, the swelling to go down, and then the headache will go away. But a lot of times, like you said, it's instantaneous. But not always. I don't want to, I never promise people, say, I'm going to adjust you and you're going to be 100%
fixed. Because it's never 100%, hardly.
Yeah.
Because we're fixing a problem with the nervous system. We're not actually fixing a headache. So we don't want to say, it's going to do that, it'll do that.
Which was something that was fed on to us, because we don't correct the headache. It gets corrected by fixing the nervous system, which is called a subluxation, and that's what we're correcting.
So it gets corrected
and that gets
by the body when it's functioning properly.
When it's ready.
And most people don't see that the correct way. They see it as, I have a headache, I have to get rid of my headache, I got to take something and it'll focus on my head and get rid of it. But it doesn't get rid of the headache as much as it just hides it, but the problem's still there. The only way to fix the problem is to fix the cause of the problem, not the symptom of the problem.
God, I love this. So let's go over that embryological, take a look at that.
Okay, so of course we're talking about the human body, so let's take it from the beginning, huh? So here we go. So this is that neural streak that we were talking about. The nervous system forms first thing, and then that nervous system starts to form everything else. It becomes the spine, the brain. And this is really a fast forward. You can see the heart's already beating.
So all those different systems are now forming. Digestive, circulatory, lymphatic, all that is all working away here in this weird thing from a different planet. I mean a human being. They just made a movie with those. What was that called?
Alien.
Alien. That was Alien.
hands and feet are coming out.
They start off as buds, just like a tree has a bud. It makes an apple. We have buds, makes arms and legs and organs.
And this is just such fast forward too, but if you're really focusing on every little thing that's happening, there's so much going on. Every millisecond of this video is just so much going on.
And unfortunately, we all got tested on that. Wah, wah.
It's beginning to look more human.
Imagine for all those dizzy people, they're having moments here. Just incredible. Feeding an excretory that's going on there. Nutrients, blood supply, oxygen.
And since it's changing so fast, if you have something that'll hurt or stop the progress, some kind of toxins, it can really cause birth defects. And so you got to really be careful of what you eat, what you drink, what you expose yourself to when you're pregnant.
And when you're pregnant, you really want to make sure that your nerves, because your body is controlling your reproductive system, you want to make sure your nerves that are going to your reproductive system are working properly as well, so all the intelligence can get in there and really thrive like it's supposed to.
Yay! We got the baby! All right. So, pretty darn amazing, just unbelievable. Well, we're going to wrap this part of the program up, and we're going to talk about whiplash injuries coming up. So did you want to say anything more about that? Because, again, it is my favorite subject.
So with the time that we have, that pretty much covers a good chunk of what we have time to talk about. But with the way the body works, you could go into infinite amounts of conversation with that. So keep it with where we're at.
And every one of those conversations to me ends with, wow!
Yeah.
You know, that's really impressive. That's really
Exactly.
cool.
I mean, the body is monitoring everything. He was talking about the blood vessels and stuff, but the body monitors how much oxygen is in the blood, and so then it can control your breathing and all kinds of things. It's monitoring the temperature and the chemical composition of the cells in the blood, and it's looking at everything. So if the body doesn't have the right signals, doesn't have the right information, then that can affect the way the brain sends signals out to the cells and tissues of the body also.
You said the word wow. Here's one of my favorite wows. So here you have the umbilical cord, right? It's giving it oxygen and all that. The heart cannot pump through the lungs because you drowned. It has to get its oxygen through the umbilical cord. So as the heart, as soon as you come in and breathe air, like the baby's born, it breathes air, that there is a seal that goes across the heart to stop that stops the heart from going, that starts the heart from going, now it
But
pumps
it's an
into the
override.
lungs.
It pumps the blood a different way.
Does anyone remember the name
I
of
do.
that?
There's a hole
It's a
literally
duct.
in your heart. When you're in the belly, there's a hole in your heart that bypasses the lungs, and then as soon as you get out
First
in the
breath,
world,
it closes.
So let me get this straight. There's a hole in the heart, and when you're born, it closes.
wow!
And the vessels that come out also bypass the lungs, and it forms a duct afterwards. It forms like a ligament. So, wow, it just changes as the needs of the body change.
So at first it's like a very thin layer, and then it grows and becomes an actual chunk of stuff that seals it up. I just find that, like, talk about taking things for granted. If that doesn't seal up, understand, that child would die. Simple, from lack of oxygen. And wow, what's that called? Does anyone know the name of it? Anyone remember?
I'm thinking it's like ductus vitalis is the vessels, but the hole in the heart is.
Ductus aureus, is it?
I don't
Anyway,
remember.
I knew the name for years and years. I'll have to re-look that up. It's been a while. I haven't discussed this in years and years. Who thinks of these things? Just a bunch of chiropractors. But nobody even knows this. That your body, how big is that thing? It's got to be pretty good size, the hole. It's got to be a pretty big, giant hole.
Full-size adult, when you look at it, it's about, you can't really see it from
Like
here.
a
but
penny.
It's like almost the size of a penny, yeah.
That's a big hole. I mean, if you have a hole in your heart and thinking about it, that's a big hole in your heart. And your body seals it up instantly the moment you take a breath. Who told it to seal up?
Wow.
Wow. The nervous system, the brain, and it's just, wow. Oh, we got air. Seal it up. Sends the signal out, and the cells go, okay, sealed. Keep breathing.
And that's why a lot of pregnant women, they're looking at different birthing methods, and one popular method these days is the water birth. And a lot of times people say, but
you'll
the baby
drown."
drowned. The baby's been going without air inside you for the past 9 months. It can make it from hair to hair without drowning because it knows.
Wait.
Because it's getting its oxygen through the placenta.
Breathe in its own oxygen beforehand.
After it's born, it doesn't start immediately. When the air gets in there, it can sit in that tub for a while, totally underwater.
As long as it has the placenta.
Correct. It's still working, and it's still pumping. It's still doing its thing. And as soon as it gets to the air, how does it know the difference between air and water? It's a baby.
That's what we call a newborn scuba diver.
That's right. Newborn scuba diving. Like, how does it know that? It's like unbelievable that all this is going on, all this is happening, and unbeknownst to all of us, we wouldn't know. We just wouldn't know that all this is happening. 75 trillion cells, all coordinated in a quantitative, qualitative manner, just constantly working together to make us whole. Always trying to keep us at what's called homeostasis, a complete balance of not too hot, not too cold, not too wet, not too dry. You know, our skin could dry up and crack. We've seen that. Eczema, different names you call it. Okay, and the other way, too wet, you're sweating, over excessive sweating. People will just, that balance has to be there for the body to function at its optimum functioning. So, whiplash. You ready for some whiplash? Totally the opposite end of chiropractic. Okay, we're just kind of changing it here a little bit. So, go ahead.
Well, it's not necessarily the opposite end. It's because what we were just talking about, the body is in general, that's a constant. You know, anywhere in chiropractic, there's always going to be the nervous system. You know, this is how the body works. It's, you know, it's a fact, so it is what it is. The whiplash isn't the opposite, but it's just a different aspect.
We're going into more body mechanics at this
Yes.
point, I would say. It's kind of like another branch of the tree, as you were discussing earlier. So, let's talk about, why don't you show exactly how these curves go? Would you like to do that, Neil?
Sure. So there should be three
I
normal.
find this thing not
I'll
very
let you
flexible,
hold it up.
but
Yeah,
I'll let you do it.
This model's not the most flexible, a little bit tough to get normal.
But it doesn't
curves
break as
to it.
quick.
They break pretty. We've gone through like 3 or 4 of these already in the last couple
I used
months
to go
since we got them.
Yeah, I used to go through 3, 4 every
So
year.
should be 3 curves in the normal spine.
From the side.
From the side view. From the front view, we'll start there. Should be completely straightened there. From the side view, you should have the 3 curves here. Should be a backward C in your neck, going back forward in the mid-back, and a backwards one again in the lower back. And what happens actually, going back to the fetus thing, when you're first born, you'll actually have the mid-back curve as well as the tailbone part there. But when you first start bringing your head up is when you actually start to form this upper back curve. For the lower back one, when you're standing, or when you start to stand up, is when you start forming this low back curve, actually.
And that's why crawling is so important for infants too. Sorry to change the topic
help
just for a
develop
second.
their neck curve.
But it helps because when they start sitting or going into the crawling, they're going to bring the head up,
And
strengthen this, and it'll actually start to, just from the gravity pushing down, it'll actually start with this one, and it finishes itself growing as you start to stand up.
Why are these curves so important?
Going back to the side here, and I'll kind of show you on this, and hopefully I won't break it, but it becomes the spring to your spine.
Makes it more flexible.
It keeps things able to move and able to absorb different stresses to it.
now, there's a lot of reasons why these curves are important. Another one that I like to mention to my patients is that all the joints in the spine, the bones, you know, they're solid. The joints all line up in such a way that those curves are supposed to be there. So when you start to lose those curves, let's say I spend my whole life reading, I'm a professional reader, and I sit there like this all day long, I start to lose that curve, my joints stop lining up right. So now I start to get restricted motion, I start to get that grinding. When those aren't working right, the fluid doesn't pump into the joints, so you start to dry up, causes all kinds of other problems as well.
There's one other thing I'd like to bring up is kind of like, here you have a straight line, and then here it's crooked. And so if there's a cord inside here, like a big gummy, like an actual worm is what it's like, and it's going in there. If I take this area and I reverse it, I've now stretched just like a banana. Every now and then,
I was gonna mention
I'll take
banana.
Go ahead. You
Okay, so
mention
yeah,
it.
it's like if you ever took a banana and try to straighten it, what's going to happen?
You get banana mush.
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar thing with the soft cord going through inside the bone. If it straightens out, it's going to put infinitely more tension on the actual spinal cord inside of it.
So everyone who's ever said, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm not right at all. You know, and they're getting all these different symptoms and all that. It's very common in this situation.
And the spinal cord, it's anchored from top to bottom too. You know, it's got the nerve roots coming out. There's ligaments that hold it in place. But just for example, let's stick to the curve in the neck. If you lose that curve in your neck and you get what we call forward head posture, it'll actually stretch your spinal cord from top to bottom anywhere from about 2 to 4 inches. 2 to 4 inches stretch on the spinal cord. That's quite a bit.
So let's take our cord and stretch it 2 to 4 inches.
And keep it there. Not just stretch it to that, but then keep it at that.
And wonder why you're not quite feeling up to par.
Now, when something gets stretched out, what happens to it is it gets thinned out. Now, the nervous system, it uses, you know, the nerve signals. They're a little more complicated. They're chemical electric signals. But more or less, just for example's sake, let's just say electrical signals. So if I had a wire that's this big and thick, and I had a wire that's this big and thick, which one is going to run more electricity better? The big one every time. That's why the electrical wires running down the street are bigger than the electrical wire that controls my computer. And the wire that controls my computer is bigger than the one that controls my alarm clock. Just because the bigger the wire, the more electricity can flow through it. Same thing in the spine. So when we stretch that cord out, it actually takes a spinal cord that's this big and thick and turn it into a spinal cord that's this big and thick, and really interfere with those signals.
Unbelievable. So we have a little video here we're going to run. We got about 5 minutes more on this, and then we'll go to our exercises at the end. So, which I love doing. So this is showing a whiplash injury. This was an actual case, and it's used by a lot of attorneys and things.
And this is a pretty severe whiplash injury too. This is a semi-truck hitting a vehicle, so it's a heavy impact. Not only does it include the whiplash, but this will show kind of what's going on inside the body, and it also shows concussions that are involved as well.
So going along with him saying this was a big example of it, most commonly a whiplash injury can occur 10 miles an hour rear end accident when your head is turned. So just to show that this is a big example.
So here you can see how the
of it.
brain is getting hit, and the ligaments are being torn, and nerves are being pinched. But this caused a pretty good-sized brain injury here. And the body is like, the brain sits inside a coconut shell. And if you shake it enough, inside the brain actually can hit both front and back or sides of the coconut. Probably not the best move in the world, and we also have another video we're going to put on in a second here.
Because of the soft tissue damage too, the whole cervical curve is lost. It's either straightened or a lot of times it's a reverse curve right after the injury. And if you don't correct it, the muscles and ligaments heal in that position that we were just saying is not a healthy position.
And the way that it works too, because of the way the head is so mobile, you go forward and then you go back, so it stretches everything back here, starts ripping stuff, and then you flip back the other way and it stretches everything in here and rips, and then when it's going, so start it over, so when this is being stretched, this is being squished, and vice versa. When this is being stretched, this is being squished. So the damage that it does is so fast, so severe. Like you said, really makes a difference.
And this could happen in football. This could happen in baseball, hockey, all these other sports. Falling on the stairs, slipping on the ice.
How about roller coasters?
Roller coasters. Wow, that did me one year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's show the other video here while we got another minute.
Okay.
And so, unbelievable. It's just really incredible, this whole taking care of yourselves. And we didn't even talk about the dream at all. Diet, rest, exercise, attitude, and maintenance of the spine, and all that goes with that. So just as incredible as the body works is how to take care of it. You got it? So that was showing a 3-mile-an-hour car accident.
That was more like the
and
common one I was telling you about.
Yeah. At 3 miles an hour, you get a whiplash also. Obviously, you don't want to get it at 100 miles an hour compared to 3 is better
When
than
you
100.
look at that, it's the headrest actually looks like it's acting as a fulcrum. So you want to try to adjust your headrest so that it supports your head so it doesn't flop around as much also.
So it can't go backwards.
Yeah.
The idea of the headrest, it stopped. Because originally a whiplash was when you didn't have the headrest and your head would go all the way back and then forward. And now with the headrest, really they had to change the definition a little bit to, well, whiplash, because now it doesn't do that exactly. But more technology came in and showed the injury is occurring. And anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Anything more to say?
Very
Wow.
exciting
Let's
show.
do some exercises.
Yeah, God gave you the gift of life, and what you do with that life is your gift back to God. So we're going to end this with some exercises, and we'll see you next month at Ask the Chiropractor.
All right, and welcome back to Ask the Chiropractor. The last thing we're going to do here is some exercises that you guys can all do at home. We recommend you do these exercises on a daily basis. These are called spinal hygiene exercises. In comparison to what people mostly do for hygiene on their own, well, they'll do their dental hygiene day to day. They'll brush your teeth in the morning, brush your teeth at night. We recommend you do these exercises as often as you do your dental hygiene. So do them in the morning, do them at night. It takes just a couple minutes and really makes a big difference for the spine. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off in what we like to call the inner winter posture. So we're just going to stand up nice and straight. We're going to bring our shoulders back, tuck our tummies in, keep our heads right over our shoulders. This is the inner winter posture because if you've ever been to a sporting event, seeing the team that loses, they're walking around like this. We don't want to be that. We want to be the winner. We want to keep that perfect posture. So start off in that inner winter posture. Our first couple exercises, these are called our flying friends. We have 3 flying friends. The names of these exercises are designed for children so kids can do them. But our first flying friend, we're going to start biggest to smallest. Our biggest one is called the eagle. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in the inner winter posture, keep our arms down to our sides, and we're going to raise our arms straight up our sides, bring them all the way up, and you can bring it back down. Now as you go up, you're going to be taking a deep breath in and raising your head up. So tilt your head back, take a deep breath in. You should feel your spine stretch out. When you come back down, breathe out, bring your head back down, but just bring it back to neutral. You're not going all the way down with it. Do it 3 or 4 times. Really just get that good stretch in your spine. We're just trying to keep motion in your spine so we can avoid that degeneration, avoid that pinching off. Okay? So that's our biggest flying friend. It's called the eagle. Our next flying friend is called the hummingbird. And what we do for the hummingbird, again, we're going to be in that same inner winter posture. We're going to bring our arms up to our sides, and we're going to make small circles backwards. And what we're doing here is we're focusing right between our shoulder blades. We're really trying to strengthen the muscles in our back. A lot of habits these days do a lot of strengthening in our front. We do a lot of things that bring us forward, whether it's sitting at the computer, driving in our car. Everything's bringing our shoulders forward. So we want to strengthen those muscles in our back to bring our posture back up. And a couple of variations we can do on this one. We can kind of raise our arms up a little bit, kind of work a little bit different muscle group. Again, keep doing backwards circles only. You can bring it down a little bit. Again, same thing, just a little bit different muscle group. Another variation we have on this one, we call this the drunken hummingbird. And what we do is we fly a little bit crooked, and we're just adding in some motion into this. Again, we want to keep that motion to our spine so it doesn't lock up. Okay? So we have the eagle, then we have the hummingbird. Our last flying friend is called the butterfly. What we're going to do for the butterfly is we're going to link our hands together. Now, what we're doing, we're going to have our hands behind our head, but we're not going to be pushing forward with our hands into our head. We're going to be pushing backwards with our head into our hands. So just put your hands back behind your head and just kind of bring it back just a little bit. And you can relax, and then a little bit more pressure. And we're really strengthening these muscles in the back of our neck. Again, there's a lot of habits that bring our head forward. We don't want to grow into older age walking around like this. We want to make sure we're keeping our head over our shoulders, making sure, again, we're not stretching our spinal cords either. So those are our three flying friends. So we got the eagle, the hummingbird, and the butterfly. We're just going to do a couple more. These are called the star exercises. So for the star exercise, again, we're going to stand that inner winter. We're going to bring our arms up, turn our body into a star. This time we're going to just spread our legs out a little bit. And first we're going to do what we call the twirling star. What we do for the twirling star is just, again, we're keeping motion in the spine, because when it starts to get locked up, that's when we start getting pinching off. So just left and right. As with all these exercises, you always want to make sure you're doing everything equal side to side. So that's the twirling star. Another variation on the stars is the tilting star. What we're going to do, same thing. We're just going to tilt side to side. Same thing, always do everything equal both ways. And again, we're just keeping that motion in the spine. Do this in the morning, do this at night. Really makes a big difference for keeping you healthy. Okay? So we want to thank you guys so much for watching Ask the Chiropractor today. And you guys have a great month, and we'll see you here next month.